Okay, this is the project we're doing on this video, and I have titled this piece Vintage Spring, as you can see. Very fun technique. This is just a wooden box that I got at Hobby Lobby, but you can paint it on any surface. We're going to be using chalky paint, a little bit of resist technique, learning how to paint rusty metalware. Just a super fun project. I really enjoyed doing it, and I hope that you do too. So let's get started. Alright, I'm going to show you how to prep the surface. The box that I am painting on is a much larger wooden box, and it's already been prepped and painted and all that stuff. The base coat's put on, so I didn't get that part videotaped, so I'm going to show you how I did it on this much smaller box. Okay, so the first thing that we want to do is seal this box with multi-purpose sealer because it is raw wood. But the box I'm painting on is like 8 by 8. This is just a little bitty, like 2 by 4 size box. So we're going to seal it. I'm just going to do the top of this. We're going to put our multi-purpose sealer on here. And then we're going to let it dry. We're going to sand it. And because this is such a raw piece of wood and it's still pretty rough, I'm going to apply a second coat of multi-purpose sealer on here. And then we're going to start getting our base coats on. Okay, I've got 2 coats of multi-purpose sealer on here, and I really had to sand this. It's still a little rough on those corners. This is pretty rough wood. Okay, I want to base coat this in, the top of it, with some lamp black. So I'm just doing the top. That's all that I put multi-purpose sealer on. So, and I think I will do 2 coats. We're going to put a different color of paint. We're going to put some chalk paint on top of this, but I want this underneath color, and we're going to do a fun little technique on here, like a resist technique. And so I want this black to be well covered under here because we're going to be sanding to expose the black. And when I sand it, I don't want to go all the way through to the wood. So I'm going to put 2 coats of black on here to make sure that all of the wood is completely covered. So 2 coats, get them dry very well in between. Lightly sand in between your coats. And we want to have a nice, really nice smooth finish for the top of this box. Because it's going to be, although this is not the box that I'm painting, this is the technique we're using, and it's going to be fabulous. Okay, I've got my 2 coats of black on here, and they are completely dry. So now we're going to put a little resist on here, and we're going to do that with just some plain petroleum jelly Vaseline. And so I'm just going to take some on my finger, and I'm going to put some on the edges, and just wherever I want to be able to expose that black paint later. I really like to have my edges exposed a little bit, but I want some in here as well. So, okay, so I put quite a little bit on here, and you can have some just little dots of it here and there, and that will still resist the paint. You know, you can take your paintbrush and paint some lines in there and get that kind of resist on it as well. So now we're going to paint over this with chalky finish paint, and the color of this one is Escape. I love the chalky paints. Now you want to shake it up good before you use it the first time, or pretty much every time, but it should be nice and creamy like this. It should not be dried out in any way. If it is, you let DecoArt know. So we're just going to put a coat of this on here. You can put 2 coats of it on here if you'd like. And we're just going to spread it. I'm kind of laying my brush flat because I don't want to pick up that Vaseline and carry it over the whole project. So I'm kind of letting the brush just kind of lay flat over it. You could take the blow dryer and dry that Vaseline a little bit. That would probably be beneficial. But I kind of get in a hurry sometimes and just want to get that finish on there. Look, you can already see how it is resisting. That's exactly what you want it to do. That's exactly the look that you want to go for. But you've got to remember, don't give a lot of pressure when you're painting over that. Lay your brush kind of flat and let it kind of just glide across that. Okay? Yeah, that's going to look great. So we've got to get this coat dry now. This was the chalky paint. I really love painting on top of the chalky paint. If you don't have the chalky paint, you could probably use like turquoise blue would probably be a good option. It's a little bit brighter than this color, but I think it would work just fine. Okay, so we're going to get this dry, and then I'm going to show you how that will that resist will help give this just a fabulous little finish on here. Really old, aged finish. Okay, I quickly dried this with the blow dryer. So now I'm just taking a damp paper towel, and with the damp paper towel, oh, that's not dry enough right there. You can just remove where the Vaseline is. You can just remove the paint very easily. See, like that? Oh man, that is awesome. But right there, my paint was not dry. I can see right there it's not dry either, so I'm not going to rub across it anymore. Might do a little bit here on this edge, but you see wherever we put the Vaseline, the paint is going to just remove. Now, if you don't want to use a wet paper towel, you need to let it get completely dry. Don't get in a hurry like me. You can take a super fine sanding disc and sand over that real lightly, and it will also do the same thing. It will remove that paint right off of there. So then you have a nice aged, antiqued looking finish. And once you varnish this, oh man, it is just a beautiful finish. And you can do it in so many different colors. With that black underneath, it's the perfect color to give that aged look under there. So, okay, I'm going to get this dry and see if I can get the resist off of it. But this is how your piece is going to look when you transfer your pattern on. Okay, I've got just the outline of my 3 main pieces on here, and I'm going to make this metalware of some kind, so I need to undercoat it. So I'm going to start with some gray sky because I want it to be white metalware. And we're just going to base it in with this gray sky. On all of our pieces. And this is just our undercoat. And this is a little bit of a different angle for me to paint, so I can't put this up on my easel because it would put it way too high. So hopefully I'll keep you on camera as I paint this, since it's going to be an up and down kind of project here. I love painting metalware. I love painting still life. It's one of my favorite, all-time favorite things to paint. That and fruit. I definitely feel most comfortable painting those 2 things than I do anything else. So, but I like learning everything that I can. So, okay, I'm going to come back with a round and paint that handle there. So this little planter thing that I drew in here probably isn't any kind of, technically any kind of antique looking metalware. The picture I based off of an old picture that I have, but this is just something I drew in here. And it's a little bit different. So I want you to get two coats of your gray sky on here. Gray sky is a great undercoat for a lot of things. I'm having a hard time seeing my lines here, so let me tilt it a little bit. I'm going to have to go to a smaller brush, I think. Okay, this is going to go over that, and I didn't quite paint that in right, so I have to come and transfer my line better for that side. Because that's not quite how that side's supposed to look. It's supposed to look more like this side. Okay. We'll have some greenery going over that right there, so we won't see a whole lot of it anyway. And then back behind this is going to be a plate. So keep your circle really nice. Have a little bit of water in your paint to thin the paint down a little bit. It will help you flow. When you're going along the outer edge out here, don't give so much pressure that you push it out past that line. And you'll be able to keep a nice... This part right here is going to be mostly covered by greenery when we paint the greenery in, but in case there's some of it peeking through, we want to finish that. So when I put my patterns on, I like to put them on in layers. So I've got everything in the back, oops, that I put on first and paint in. And then as I come forward, I add the details. I'm not doing a very good job of staying inside that line there. Okay, there we go. Alright, let me put the coat on the handle here. First coat. We're going to get this completely dry and apply a second coat on here. Get my vase up here a little bit better. Just pulled that out with my finger so it wouldn't be, when I come to put my second coat on, it won't be so much darker than everything else. The chalk paint is a wonderful paint to paint on. So if you haven't tried it, you are going to absolutely love it. Okay, I'm going to let that dry, and I'm going to get my second coat on. Okay, let's get busy on this piece now. I kind of propped it up on something. Hopefully it won't be sliding all over the place. I can keep it in camera shot. Now, one thing I want to mention is when you're doing that resist technique with the Vaseline, you've got to make sure you get all of the Vaseline off. So, you know, after your paint is really good and dry and you've got the resist, you know, you've removed the paint, you need to make sure all the Vaseline is off, or you're going to, it's just going to continue to resist each layer that you put on there. If that's the look you're going for, then, you know, don't worry about it. I personally like things to look really old and aged without giving it a lot of effort. We're going to give a little effort to these to make these look a little old and aged. Alright, so I'm going to use a, I've got an 8 filbert brush here, and I want to start base coating in with some cool white, and we're going to pick up some other colors as we work this in, start giving it a little bit of an aged look. We want to work kind of wet and wet, so I'm going to pick up a little bit of graphite. That's going to turn it almost the color of the underneath color. So let me pick up a little bit of turquoise blue. Get a little bit more white. And we're just going to kind of slip slap, blend that in there. Keep picking up your white. We want this is cool white now, this is not straight white. So we're just going to give all the pieces this aged look here. And if you can't work your paint fast enough to keep it from drying, then you can use a little bit of an extender on your project, and that will help. But if you can work that sapphire blue, and I don't know if I'm going to like that, but I thought I'd try it in there. Might be just a little bit too blue for me, so I think we'll stay with the with this one, the turquoise. Okay. Now I can feel my paint starting to dry down here. It's kind of draggy, so I'm just going to mist my piece. I want to put a little bit more of the graphite down in here. Now I put the paint on, went and wiped my brush off to get the excess paint off. Now I'm picking up cool white so I can just blend that. Just blend it out. Slip slap, clean your brush off as you pick up a lot of paint. Now if you don't like doing this particular technique of aging, you can just paint it your cool white and then just glaze some colors on there. We're going to be glazing more colors on it later. This is just to kind of get it into the base color, so the base color isn't just all one color. Touch of graphite and blue up here. I'm going to clean my brush, pick up some cool white, and then just slip slap blend those. It's a very gentle slip slapping, kind of tickling. I don't think I can do that with this brush, so I'm going to move on to this piece. So all the pieces are going to be done the same. We're going to use cool white and then pick up some other colors. And just retain your shape as best that you can without having to transfer your pattern back on. If you can paint the things in and really define their shape, a lot of times you won't have to put your pattern lines back on. Okay, let me pick up a little bit of turquoise. I'm going to slip slap that in there. And a little bit of graphite. Okay, I put it on here, wiped it off of my brush. Now I'm just coming back and I'm going to kind of just tickle slip slap. I'm just barely moving that around because I don't want it to go completely away. I don't want it to completely blend down into the white. So we just want to retain a little bit. Okay, I'm going to go over here and finish the plate. It's done exactly the same way. If you need to, come back and apply a second coat. I probably will apply a second coat on here, doing the same thing, trying to keep the colors within the same areas and get a little bit more solid coverage on there. Okay, got our base coats on. They should be nice and blended. There shouldn't be any hard lines. So if you've got some hard lines, pick up a little bit of cool white and kind of tickle that over some of those hard lines on there. It's very important when you're painting the background that once you dab your paint on there, to place it where you want it, to go wipe that paint out of your brush and then pick up some cool white and tickle and blend. Just, by using the tip of your brush Just like that, blend it. If the paint is wet, it's all going to blend together nicely. Okay, now we want to create our color on our edges. Now, excuse me, the metalware that I've done in the past, I've done the black on it because I have some of that. But because I have blue in the background, I just want to change this up and make it my own. And I'm going to put our turquoise blue on the edge. So you're just going to need a round brush, okay? And put the pattern on if you need it. But it's just basically following the shape of the top of the vase, or the picture. This is actually a metal picture that I have. Okay, and we're going to do the top edges. It's not going to stay that bright, so you can see how much brighter the turquoise blue is than the chalk paint. I'm going to do this on this edge. Now a lot of this is going to be covered up by our greenery and stuff that we put in. And then on the plate, we want to go around the whole, excuse me, the whole edge of the plate. So hopefully I can do this and still retain a circle. Try and keep it the same width. I see I got wider up here, so I'm going to have to go back and widen this. So try to keep your pressure the same. So just do a little bit at a time. That way your brush won't get away from you. And old metalware is not going to be perfect anyway. At least none of mine is. I've got a little bit flat here. Push that out too far, so let me try and clean some of that off. There we go. This little spot right here kind of bugs me. Put a little bit of water in with your paint, and that will keep it flowing nicely, so you don't have to give so much pressure with your brush. Alright. Excuse me. That turned out pretty good for a circle, I must say. It's a little wobbly, but then it is an old metal plate. Now, if you prefer not to do the blue like I'm doing, I'm going to age that blue down. Don't worry, it's not going to stay that bright. You can always just do the traditional black because you have black, you know, underneath it. So that is an option if you don't want to do the blue along with me. Okay, I've got this little planner this far, so I'm going to do it on the picture and show you how I got this effect. Let me zoom out a little bit. I don't want to get too far because I want you to be able to see what I'm doing. So I've got a 6 curved flat, and let me get some fresh paint out here. I'm going to take turquoise blue and graphite. Now I just brush mix because I use such a small amount of paint. But if you need a ratio, it is 2 graphite to 1 turquoise blue. And then we're going to, I don't have enough paint on my brush. I got a little bit too much water, not enough paint. So let me reload here. Oops. Helps if I go into the fresh paint and not the dry paint. Okay, so we want to shade on this edge here. I think I might just add a little bit more graphite in there. I don't think it's quite as dark as I would like. Just play around with your mix and get it a nice color that will look old, but you need to have that turquoise blue in there. And then we're going to go around this edge here. And we go along the bottom edge of the blue here. Okay, and we can kind of bring some of this up on here to kind of, I'm just kind of dabbing it on there, where we can kind of make it a little bit more yucky looking, I guess. Worn, old, aged. Now I'm going to take a small round brush, number 1, or you can use a liner. Thin your cool white paint down just a little bit. And we're just going to kind of skim some of this across here for a little bit of highlight. Oops. Not too much. If you feel like you've got too much, take a little bit of your turquoise blue and water it down. And then you can just kind of glaze that over it. Take your highlight down just a tiny bit. I want to dirty that up a little bit more. It's still not quite dirty and aged enough for me. Okay, so then we're going to take this same mix, this charcoal and your turquoise blue. We're mixing up a little bit more here. And we're going to go underneath this. I've got my paint a little wide, so let me push that up underneath there. I'm going to go underneath this to create make that seem like it's sticking out farther than it actually is. Okay, and we're going to do the exact same thing over here to the plate. So with the plate, you're going to go around the whole outside. With smaller brushes, you have to load more often. They just don't hold paint and carry them, but you need a smaller brush for this. We're going to go around the outside edge. I'm going to stay up on the toe a little bit because I don't want to completely fill that blue. You could probably use pre-dampen this and use a round brush or a liner brush to do this, as long as you've got it pre-dampened, so that will blend that paint out a little bit. Because you don't want the paint to just lay on that edge. You want it to kind of soften. A little bit too much water there. Mix a little more paint on my brush here. All the way around. Try and keep your circle. Okay, now I want to kind of age that blue up like I did over there and over here by just putting some, spots on it here and there. We can add a little bit more charcoal in there to make them look a little more. And then we're going to go around the underneath of this as well. With that charcoal and turquoise blue. That's 2 charcoal to 1 turquoise. If you feel like it's not quite dark enough, then you can add a I'm gonna start over here. You can add another graphite into the mix. This is just a very gentle pressure. And I'm just kind of coaxing that paint around. Don't ever feel like you have to get your floats in one big swoop, because it just doesn't work out that way. At least it never has for me. So I'm mixing a little bit more paint here. Keep going into the old paint instead of the fresh paint. Okay, so that's got that looking a little bit more aged. Now let's put our cool white on there. Get a little bit of highlight on this edge. Just kind of a hit and miss kind of thing. Okay, now I want to kind of fade that back in there a little bit, so I'm going to, when I say I'm making a wash, I'm just dipping into my water. I dipped into my paint and I brought it down here, and then I just mixed it into some water. Dipped into water, I get the words out, and then I'm making just a little wash of this. And now I'm just going to apply it over top of our white areas. Kind of take those down just a little bit. I don't kind of want them screaming in your face. Okay, now we want to do our little rust areas here. And you can use a round brush or a liner, whichever you prefer. We're going to take some burnt sienna and we're going to thin it down just like I just showed you to thin the that blue that I put on there down. Not quite as thin, but we still want it kind of thin. So we're going to just go in here and figure out where everything might have some rust going on. Okay, I say it's going to be rusty under there because years of water being dumped out of it. I'm going to put some rust up on the upper edge in a couple of places. And then we want to come underneath this. It's definitely going to have some rust. We can bring it up on the toe of the brush and kind of bring it down. And, you can just create some rust areas wherever you like. I say there probably is going to be some rust here. This is traditional burnt sienna I'm using here. It's a very sheer color. I really like it. It does wonderful for rust. I think there's probably going to be some rust here. Definitely going to be some at the bottom somewhere. Let's put some over here underneath this part of the handle. And we don't want it just on the outside edges. We want it we can have some, like, there can be some rust going on here that's been created somehow. You know, just put your rust wherever you feel like it would be a good place. I'm going to put some on the handle as well, because, you know, this handle's going to be pretty worn. I'm going to say up here. Now, the metal pitcher that I have actually has a plastic handle on it, so you could actually make that handle the same color as like the turquoise blue if you want. Okay, so over here on the plate, we're going to do the same. We're going to create some rusty stuff going on our plate. You want to stay with the shape of the plate, so don't lose that roundness by making this one come straight down like this, because that just wouldn't look right. So just pick and choose. We're going to put a center in here, a definition of a center kind of in here. So I'll kind of walk these rusty areas out a little bit. Put some of this on your outer edge too. Okay, I'm going to put a little bit in the center here because I know I'm going to have a circle in here somewhere. So I'll just put a little bit. I don't know where the circle's going to be yet. Probably would be better if I put that circle in. It might be helpful. Okay, up here we probably won't see that, you know, after we paint in our greenery there. So, okay, so there is the beginning of our rusty stuff on our metalware. I really love making old looking pieces, so this is going to be so much fun. I think you're going to love it, and it's a really easy process. Okay, this is turning out really nice so far. I went ahead and drew a circle in here, and one of the tools I wanted to show you that I use, and I just buy these, I bought mine at Michael's, is a circle template. And they have two different sizes that they sell. They have this one that has lots of different sizes in it. The biggest one on here is, oh, I got it backwards, 2 1/4. And then this one starts at 1 1/4 and goes up to 3 1/2. So lots of different circle options there. So if you don't have a circle template, these are very easy to just store. You can store them in a notebook in a little clear divider thing. But very handy to have. I use them a lot. So we want to finish this plate up with its little rusty stuff here since I added the circle. First thing I want to do is go in and shade around that center like I did underneath this and underneath this. So I'm going to shade inside the center here with that mix of turquoise blue and 2 graphite. Just get a nice little color there. And then we're just going to shade along this line here. Kind of give this a little bit of a center. I'm just using my 6 curve flat, just working it along there, pushing it along. You've got to have a little bit of water in your brush to get that done. Otherwise you're just going to lay a flat line, straight line down. I don't know, I probably haven't shown on this DVD, but I show on all of my DVDs. So in case I haven't on this one, I'm going to show you how I load my brush. I want you to load your brush whatever is the most comfortable and the way that you like to load it. But for those of you who don't have a loading technique, I'll show you how I do mine. So I dip into my paint. I've just got a small brush here. I've got a little bit of water, but I always have spritzes of water on my palette somewhere. Usually on that side. I keep the paint over here and I keep the water over there. So if I need water, I can just go over here and grab a little dot of water. And then I'll dip into my paint and I load it like this. I load it in a V, usually right next to the paint, and I'll work it a little bit, kind of push it up in the brush. If you want it to come farther across on the bristles, you can start bringing it out a little bit. If you want it, you know, a little bit tighter against it, up on the toe of the brush, you can push against it like that. Okay, so the big thing that I want to tell you is that you want to feel a softness as you're loading it. And how your brush looks right here on your palette is exactly how it's going to paint. So if it's dry and draggy, or you've just got a tiny bit of paint and you're just making a line like that, that's exactly how it's going to paint for you. Nothing magical is going to happen from your palette to your piece. So you've got to have it loaded nicely right here. So you see, when I first picked up paint, it was pretty harsh little line there. So I'm just going to keep working it a little bit until all that paint softens up with that water that's in my brush. So when I go to paint and I lay my brush down, no matter which direction I'm going to leave a nice soft float. And if I want to walk that float out because I've got a little bit of water in my brush, I can just walk that paint out because I'm walking it into the water area that I have laid out on from the other side of my brush, and then I can just mop that. Just barely, I mean just barely mop that. If it, you know, doesn't look as smooth as what you'd like, and that smooths it out, softens it out, and you've got just a beautiful float. So just remember, how it is here is how it's going to paint for you. So let me get a little bit more. Let's see, I'm trying to decide if I want to put some on the other side of this circle. I think for now I'll just leave it like that. And let me grab my round brush and we'll put some little rusty stuff on here. Now this is that traditional burnt sienna. And we'll maybe bring this one up here a little bit. Let's put a little bit down here. Maybe a little bit right there. And it could come over onto this side. I mean, the rust doesn't have to just stay confined right there. So, you know, create your rusty areas however looks nice to you. Okay, so, and then you can look back on it before we go on to another step. And I think this piece right here, even though we may not see it because after we put our leaves in, it looks like it needs just a little bit of some rust going on right here. Okay, and then let me look at my picture. My picture looks pretty good. It's not overwhelmed by rust, so I'm going to put a little bit along this edge right here. And then I want to bring this together a little bit more. Maybe bring it down some. And I think just a little bit underneath here. Okay, we've got some good rusty stuff going on here. So now we want to bring a little bit more attention to that rust. Okay, so I'm going to go into my, let's see, I put some charcoal gray out here. I'm going to see how I'm going to like that. Now we're going to use it the same way with our round brush. We're going to thin it down with some water. And we're going to kind of go around the outside of our rusty places. We don't want this super dark, so don't get carried away. And you can do a hit and miss thing. A little bit more water in my brush. My paint's a little too dry. I don't want it leaving hardness, you know, thick paint on there. I want it to be a little softer. And I touch back with my finger a lot because that softens it the same way as if you were using a mop brush. Okay. So any edges that would have, this would be like the part where the paint maybe is chipped off next to the rust, but it hasn't gotten rusty yet. It's just kind of starting to get a little bit of oxidation in it. So we're going to do this to all of our rust areas. And even up here I want to put a little bit. I need to darken some of that rust there. Okay, so over here, I'm going to go over here, do these. Just about anywhere that you've put some rust, we want to get some of this. And like I said, you don't have to outline the whole rusty place there if you don't want to. Okay, this one needs to be a little bit darker over here. Okay, a little bit too much water in my brush. Okay, so see how we're starting to bring some of that rusty stuff a little, you know, we're making the white part on the metalware to stand forward and push the rust back underneath. Okay, so come over here. I really truly love painting old stuff. I know I already mentioned this, but it is, I love making stuff look old. Okay, and any of your rusty places that you don't feel that are that rust color bright enough, mix a little bit, thin a little bit down, and go in there and define them a little bit more. I've just got a couple places where I feel like it could look a little more rusty. Don't be smooth with it. You want it to be irregular. I've never seen a piece of metalware or anything that's chipping off where it's a nice smooth piece of rust. It's going to be jagged and irregular. Okay, I think that's looking pretty good for our rest right there. Okay, let's start doing a little bit of shading on our metalware. I'm going to use the graphite. Load my brush just like I showed you loading it. I'm going to start with just a small curve flat, a number 6, because I want to do on the handles here. Separate them from the picture itself. And down here where it attaches. That a little wider than what I wanted right there. So I'm just going to remove it. I'm going to follow that shape. Okay, I'm going to take my water edge and pull this out a little bit. I don't want that hard line right there. Soften it down. Okay, I'm going to go to a bigger brush now. Go to a 10 curved flat. I'm waking it up in my water. Remember, got to fill the bristles completely full of water. Plump them up. After you get it full of water, you lay it on your paper towel this way, you lay it on your paper towel this way, you dry your ferrule off. Brushes are plumped up, they are conditioned, they are ready to go. To paint for you. You cannot paint with a dry brush. It's just impossible to do. Okay, I'm going to try and stick with this graphite. I might have to go to soft black because, let's see if I have soft black here. Soft black has a little bit of brown in it, and I like that brown that is in soft black. So let's switch from charcoal over to soft black. Okay, I'm going to load my number 10 curve flat. We want to go along the bottom. Let's see if this is going to look okay with this color palette we have here. Oh, I don't know, that makes it look a little too pink, so I'm going to go back to the charcoal. Or graphite. Graphite's what I'm doing here. So let me try that again. Now that looks a little bit better. Kind of round that off a little bit. Okay, I'm going to mop it to soften it. Try to stay in the water edge. Only go into the paint when you're mopping if you need to remove some paint. If you feel like you've put too much on, you need to remove it. And you can only do that when the paint's wet. Once the paint's dry, you're going to have to paint over it somehow. Okay, let's go around this. Okay, we'll go around this one here. So put kind of a shadow on the plate here. Okay, I'm going to mop that. I'm going to come back and put a little bit of water on this edge because goodness. Sorry about that. I'm trying to keep it propped up so I can see it, and the thing I've got it on just sliding it everywhere. Okay. And I don't like how that worked out, so I'm just going to take that off. I'll let my paint dry a little bit too much there. Alright, let me get some water on my brush. I'm going to try and refloat that. Get that a little bit nicer looking. Would have been easier probably if I'd just come from this direction in the first place. Okay, I'm going to mop very gently. Okay, we're going to go above as well. And I'll mop that. I've probably got just a touch too much water in my brush. Okay, I'm going to go around on this one here, on the planter, along the bottom. I'm going to kind of walk that up and get a little bit more paint. I want it a little bit darker in the corners. Okay, I'm going to mop that. Starting to look kind of old and dirty, isn't it? It's looking good, looking good. Okay. I'm going to move over to the plate because I want to make sure that this is dry before I go anywhere else. And I'm going to go around the outside edge. And I want to bring that in. This is very sheer wash. So it's a lot of water and not very much paint. You're almost creating like a glaze or a wash with your float. The paint is very sheer. So let me show you how that is. It's very sheer here. I'll get a little bit more water. So we've got a very, very sheer little float there. A lot of my floating will be more on the sheer side. I would rather come back and repeat it than have it just be too dark and not be able to go anywhere with it. Okay, I think I'm going to float on the opposite side of this inside circle here. Circle. Okay, we can go down our outer edges of our planter now. I'm not really sure where the light source is going to come from yet. So let's just make a decision here. I think we'll have the light source coming from this side. So I'm going to leave that side a little bit lighter and make this side a little bit darker. I'm going to mop that up. I've got a really hard line there. You see that super duper hard line right there? So I wash my brush out. Now I'm just taking the water and dampening that edge. And then I'm going to try and remove it with the mop brush, but that didn't work because it was already dry. So Try that again. Okay, that looks much better. So we'll come back and darken that edge here in a little bit. Okay, I want to get my wider curved flat, my number 12, and I want to float down here and on the back side here. We're still just using that charcoal gray. Let me put some more water on my palette here. No, we're not using charcoal gray, we're using graphite. I'm going to have to not confuse you there, huh? Okay, I want to go below here because this will have a little bit of shadow from that planter. I'm going to kind of walk that out a little bit. Take my mop brush. I'm going to go in the whole thing, but I am barely tapping in that. And just softening it. Okay, so now we're going to shade on the back side over here. Now, if you're doing a long float and you are uncomfortable floating for a long distance, you can't get the right amount of water in your brush to carry it, then you can pre-dampen it. Just don't put as much water in your brush when you go to apply it. That way it won't float away to nothing. Okay, let me walk this out a little bit here. Hope that's looking okay because I've got it at an angle and I can't hardly see it. Okay, I'm going to mop right in it. And that's going to put paint on my mop brush, so I'm going to wipe my mop brush off and then come back on that water edge and soften that. Okay, and I'm going to want to repeat that here in a little bit, but for now, that is good enough. Let's go to the handle. I'm going to go to my smaller brush here. My 6 curved flat, back to it. I should have done this while I had the 6 in my hand, so I'm not switching back and forth to brushes. Okay, so on the handle we want to go on the underneath edge. Okay, that's looking pretty good, I think. Okay, I want to widen underneath the rims of these with this graphite. Just a little bit. So I'm going to use my 10 curved flat and just create a little bit more defined and a little bit wider float under that. Underneath here. Okay, and I think I will also go around the inside of the plate right underneath the blue. This is just going to define that a little bit more. Go underneath. I am really sorry that this is just moving all over the place for you. I want to go underneath here and kind of bring that down a little bit, just a little bit. I want that underneath here to be a little more shaded. Okay. Now we want to go along the bottoms again and the right sides here. Same color. We're just going to deepen. A little bit more paint here. My paint's starting to dry up and I should get some fresh paint out. Along this back edge back here. Now these metalware shapes can be used for lots of different things. Like you could do blue Delft or green Delft on them. That would be very pretty. I was originally going to do blue Delft on this, but I decided to use the chalky paint. The color that I chose just didn't quite go with the blue Delft. So I'll do that on another project sometime. Okay, I mop that. I just want to kind of soften all that, smooth it out. Okay, I'm going to put a little bit more down here on this side. We're going to have our light source over there, but we want a little bit more just down there. We're just going over some key areas here. We're not going to do it all. I don't think we're going to do it all. I say that, but then who knows, with me I could completely change my mind in the middle of doing something. Okay, I'm going to go a little bit darker in here. Mop that. Okay. I think with this charcoal I want to put a little bit on the edges here. Okay, that metalware is looking pretty good. So, excuse me again. Wish I had a better way to hold that up. We basically just deepened, you know, on our right sides and at the bottom, and then in the center of the plate, underneath the rims. Okay, I think I will go along that handle though. It looks like it needs just a little bit deeper color. I'm going to try it with this bigger brush. I'm going to go next to where it attaches and go all the way down. And right there. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. We are getting some good rusty stuff going on this. Alright, let's add a little bit of that turquoise into our rust. Okay, I am going to darken this turquoise. So I've just thinned some down with water, but I want to darken it with a little bit of graphite. I don't want it super bright. Okay, we're going to put some of this in our rust. A little bit too much water in there, so let me add some paint to thicken it up. Okay, we want to put some of this just randomly in some of our rust. You don't even have to put it in all of it. Ooh, that was a little much. That was a little much. And I won't put it up there because you won't see it anyway. A little bit on the handle. Ooh, got a goober there. A little bit more oxidation in there. Okay, I think that's looking pretty good. I'm going to bring some of this out on the white area a little bit and then just kind of rub it back with my finger. Okay. Okay, I just kind of soften it back with my finger. That does the same thing as, you know, if you were using a mop brush. A little bit quicker with your fingers because your fingers are right there and you don't have to stop and go grab a brush. Okay, I need some shading. Let's see, I think I'll go with my 6. I want a little bit of shading around these rust things. I'm going to have to work it over a little bit farther in my brush. Too much water. Got to find that happy medium. Little brushes, you have to go back and load paint quite frequently. I want to go along that rust right there. Just bring it down that side just a little bit. That might be too much on that edge. Not really liking that. So let me take that off. That's our lighter side, and I don't like it being so outliney right there. So I'll come back and do something a little bit different there. Every little step that you do makes it look more realistic. You can skip any steps that you want to skip, but it's not going to have the same impact. So I used to, when I first started painting, oh my goodness, why in the world are we putting so many layers on something? And it took me a few years to realize that that layering process is what gives you the most depth. Granted, I don't want to have to do 15 layers of something, but if I have to do 3 or 4, I'm okay with that, because it is going to give me the best look that I can get. And you see that I'm just kind of tapping, dabbing, using the water edge, smooth it out. We just want to define these places a little bit. You know, make them, I don't want them to look so much like they're not on top. And the outlining of it with the messy little graphite here is going to give us that effect. Like that is a really thick enamel that's on this, and it is chipped out really good. Go up here and make this one a little bit darker. I think I'm going to just float along that one, along the edge right there where that is, the outer edge of the vase there. It's looking really good. Okay, I want to put just a couple of washes of the teal, turquoise. Well, I'm just calling my paints all the colors that they're not, aren't I? Back in where we originally had some of this color. Just kind of put some in there with a very damp brush. It's like a wash. Oh, I'm just going to use my finger instead of my mop brush and trying to smooth that out a little bit. Give us our tints back in here. Okay, that metalware to me is looking like it is pretty darn beat up, especially that plate. I might got a little carried away on my plate. I think it's got a little bit too much rusty going on it. So like I said, you can do less of rusty areas if you want. Just pick and choose a couple of rusty areas, or you can get carried away like I did on this piece. But by the time we get the greenery in here and the flowers up here and you won't notice as much of that rust by the time we get done, trust me. Okay. Alright, we're going to add our highlight now. We're going to highlight with Snow White. Okay, so I'm going to use a 12 curve flat. It may end up being too big and I might have to go to a smaller brush. We're going to highlight on this edge. I'm not going to go completely underneath there. Walk it out just a little bit. I'm going to highlight on this edge. Pull it out with the water edge. I'm going to kind of stay up a little bit more sharp here. Maybe not. I'm going to remove a little bit of that in my little rust area there. I don't want to completely cover it up. Okay, I'm going to go to my round brush. Let's see here. I want to create a highlight on the plate here. And our light source is coming from this way. Still a little bit hard line there. So we're going to highlight along the top of this, through here, and put a little bit here. Okay, now on our planter, I don't like that. I don't like that one right there. Okay, on our planter, we're going to be up here. And we're going to be down this edge. Just put a few strokes on there. On this planter, or this picture, we're going to have a little highlight here, and then we're going to highlight coming down and rounding it. We want to form the shape here with our highlights. Okay, put some right here. And I think this one is a little bit too long, so let's shorten these. Same size here. Okay, I'm going to put one right here. Okay, now if those start fading down in there too much, like I think this one's faded down in there, I am going to repeat it. This one. And I might leave that one off. Okay, I think I got the highlight too wide on my handle, so I'm going to come back and refloat that along there. And I think we're going to leave all the metalware where it is right now until we get everything else painted in. and see where we need to add an additional highlight on here. Okay, I've got some traditional burnt sienna in my brush, so I am just going to wash this in. I'm feeling like we're losing some rusty stuff here. So I'm just going to wash this in. This is just a wash, a floating. I'm floating, but my paint is thinned like a wash. Okay, I think I'm going to do that with all of my rust areas, because I think that brings that rusty stuff out a little bit more. Oh yes, that definitely improved on that quite a bit. Okay, so just anywhere where there's some rust going on, just do a little wash of this color around it. See how soft that looks around that? Yeah, that is definitely an improvement. So, I knew it needed something else, just couldn't see it till I picked up the brush to put some rust back in over there. So now I'm thinking that is looking much better. It's shiny metalware, but it's rusty shiny. Okay, I think that's looking pretty good. Alright, time to start adding some greenery and some plants in here. That is looking like some fantabulous metalware there. Alright, we're going to start working on we're going to do daisies in here with some leaves, and I'm going to do leaves that probably don't even relate to daisies, but it's what I want to put in there, so it's my vision, and I'm entitled to make my daisy leaves any way I want. There are several different variety of daisy leaves, so you know, anything that I put in there is probably going to be complementary to the flower itself. And then down here I'm just going to do a little vining bush in this one. So we're going to get started here. I'm going to get my little filbert brush that I used earlier. Or maybe I didn't use it yet. Okay, well, let me get a small filbert brush. I'm going to base these in with avocado. Yeah, avocado is what I dumped out. I want to make sure that's what color paint I dumped out. And I kind of drew some in here. You probably can't, well, yeah, you can kind of see the lines on there. And I may completely change that. By the time I start painting these, I may think, oh, I don't want that one there, I want this one there. So we're just going to start painting some leaves in here. And then after we get them based in, we can decide if we want to give them some turned edges. Let's see, I've got one coming out over here, so I'm going to flatten the brush a little bit more and bring it out. I've got one that's kind of coming out of here, going over the front here. let's see. I'm going to clean up this edge right here because it's behind the planter, not in front of it. And I've got one that's back here behind. These are probably more like leaves for a lily or something, but okay, I just messed the end of that one up, so let me fix that. And I want this one a little bit wider through here. Okay, let's see. I've got one that's coming out of the planter. I've got one that's coming in the front, but I don't want to put it in quite yet. I've got one that's, need a little bit more paint, one that's coming down this way. It's up this way. I need a little bit of water in my paint. It's not wanting to flow from my brush there. I'm just pushing on the brush to flattening it out, then coming up on the chisel to get a nice edge there. And I think I'm going to turn this one the other direction. I think I'm going to bring it down this way. Alright, let's put one coming up here. I've got one that's right here. It kind of goes behind that one. Okay, let me put one up here. I'm going to kind of give it a bend as well, so let me fatten that. Okay, and then this one in front here. I'm going to make this one a little bit fatter. Okay, so we've got some nice big leaves coming out of there. Okay. So we need to get those dry and let them, and then apply a second coat on there so we can start adding some shading and highlighting on those before we put our flowers on. Okay, I've got my second coat on. I've got drawn my lines where I can separate all of the leaves a little bit. So we're going to start shading on these leaves with some black green. So we're going to shade wherever one lays on top of another one. We're also going to shade at the base down here. We'll go all the way across that, but I want to define my leaves a little bit here. I'm just using a 10 curved flat. You use whatever brush you feel most comfortable using. I really love the curved flats. I think they're one of the best brushes invented. That's a little bit wide there, so let me narrow that. Go down here along this base of all these. Okay, now there's a couple of these that I think I might want to give a little twist on, so like that one, and I think that one. Let's see, this one looks like it could be, it's not the direction I wanted that to go. Nope, that doesn't look right. I'm drawing it from the wrong angle or something. So that part is turned out. Okay, I'll have to think about that one. Okay, and then this one here, I think I might give a little bit of a turned edge. There we go, like that. Okay, so I've got a couple of turned edges on there. So let me get my 6 curved flat. And we'll define those a little bit. So with that black green. That's a little bit too wide on there, so let me take some of that paint off with the water edge of my brush. Paint too far over on my brush, so I'm going to wash it out and reload it. Then we'll go up here to this one. Okay, I think those are looking pretty good with the turn places. I'm going to go in and erase my graphite lines now. And then we can start adding some highlights. Oh, I see a place I need to shade. Right here. Easy peasy. Okay, I don't want to do tons of detail on these leaves because our daisies are going to be the focal point in here. I do want to give them some highlighting and a little bit more shading though. Okay, a little bit more shading here on this back edge. Alrighty. Okay, let's start adding some highlights on here. Before I do that, I want to shade a couple more places here. I want to shade along this, a little bit of water. So I'm using a smaller brush, so the paint's not going to carry nearly as far. I'm just going to go down a couple of edges. Oops. I hope I'm keeping you on camera here. I need to widen this one here. Right here. And try and shade that a little bit. go along this under edge here. Maybe just a touch wider on that one. Okay, I think we're looking pretty good there. Okay, let's, one more leaf here I want to do. And this one here. Okay. I think that looks pretty good. Let's start adding some highlights on here now. I think I'm going to highlight with, oh my goodness, I've got olive green. I think it might be too bright, so I'm going to get avocado dip. It's a bright color as well, but it will kind of settle down in there. Of course, olive green will settle down in there too, but let me see how this color is going to look. It wasn't shook up very good. Let me shake it up a little bit better. Alright, that's better. Okay, let's see how this avocado dip is going to do for us. Opposite sides that we shaded on. And a little bit wider there. I'll make sure we go all the way to the edge there. Don't leave any of that exposed. Okay, now on this one here, we're going to go right here. Along that edge. I'm using the 6 curve flat. When you get in tight areas like that, you've got to kind of get up on the toe. Okay, before I move on around this thing, let me go back to this one. I want to put a little bit right there. Side. And kind of walk that into the leaf a little bit. Okay. This one here. Oh, let me get you on camera. I tried to get the lid off of this box, but I could not. I guess I could have my husband do it. He's home now. I could not get the screws unscrewed off of this. So there was no getting the lid off. For me, anyway. So I might go down and have my husband take see if he can get the screws out of it. And then we'll be able to turn it on my turntable without all this horrible noise that I'm making with this. It's my brush basin, it's my brush cleaner thing that I'm using to prop it up. So it makes a lot of noise when I fall off of it. Alright, let's go down this side, bring it in. I'm going to flip my brush, go down this edge, kind of walk it up there. Stay up on the very edge of the brush. Just follow that curve right there. Okay, I did not shade along that back edge there, so let me put some highlight on it. I'm going to walk it over a little bit. So basically every place that you did not put a shading is where you'll want to do a little bit of highlighting. Bring that over. Okay, this one here, I want to do this outer edge. And let's see, this big one here, we're going to do. And we're going to put daisies on this, so who knows how much of this you'll see. But if you ever want to just paint the leaves in here and not add the daisies, then you'll know how to do it. How to finish them out. That's another reason why I like to paint in layers, because if there's ever anything that you want to just leave off, you can leave it off, because you know how to paint the whole thing in. Water, some more paint. Let's do this one. Okay, I see a couple places I want to go over this edge again. This leaf is more forward than any other leaf. Okay, I want to put just a little bit back here on this leaf. Like I said, a lot of this stuff we're probably not going to end up seeing, but just in case we want to be able to just paint our leaves in, we want to have that finished look. Okay, I'm going to go back with my black green. There's a couple places I just want to intensify with the shading. Just do a little tweaking. Right here. Okay, I think that looks pretty good on those leaves. I don't think we want to do much more than that on there. If I was just going to do the leaves, I'd probably go back and add a little bit brighter highlight on there. After I get my daisies painted in, I may want to come back and add a little bit more highlighting on those leaves. But I'm going to wait till I get the daisies in to see how that makes the leaves look as they work with the daisies. Okay, let's add some daisies in here we're going to use light buttermilk. Okay, I'm going to use a filbert brush for filbert. And I'm going to load my brush with some buttermilk. And then we're just going to pick and choose where we want our daisies to be. So I think I want one up here. So you always want to bring the stroke to where the center of the daisy is going to be. And these in the front can be shorter. Okay, so there's one daisy. Let's put one out here. And there's all different kinds of daisies. I mean, if you go and search daisies on the internet, you will just find so many different colors and styles, and just amazing, beautiful daisies. I'm making this one a little bit bigger because it's kind of front and center. And you can just make some half ones if you want. My brush feels like it's filling full of paint, so I'm just going to go wipe all the paint out and reload it. I'm going to turn this way so I can put one that's coming off down here. A little bit of water in your paint. If it starts feeling like it's getting super thick or not wanting to flow nicely off of your brush, then you might want to add a little bit of water to it. You can just do little one. That one's like not completely opened yet. I'll have all these placed on your pattern so you'll know where they go. But if you ever want to freehand some daisies, this will give you an idea of how to do it. My paint's getting a little bit dry. I think I need to get some water in my brush. See, I'm going to put another small one down here. Maybe another little one here. Alright, I'm going to wipe my brush out again because it's getting full. I don't think we're going to need too many more daisies in here. Let's put another one over here. Here. Maybe one out here. Bring this out just a little bit more. And put one down here. And one down here. Couple more out. Get a little bit of water in my brush here. One down here. One out here. Look at it and see how that's looking. Alright. I'm going to wash my brush out because I really feel like it's loading up in there. I'm going to put a few more smaller ones in here. really, when you're doing these little ones, it's just a little bit of dabbing. I'm just laying the brush and let the paint come off of the brush. You don't have to. I don't want to get it too filled up. That's kind of a sloppy little one. Okay, I think I want to fatten this stroke up a little bit. Okay, I think that's looking pretty good right now for our little bouquet of daisies. I don't want to completely cover up our leaves. So I think that's a nice little amount for our daisies. Okay, I want to make these flowers have little pink centers in the middle. So I'm just going to float on each petal a little bit of razzleberry is the color that I have. Just right there at the very center. I just want to make these little pink centers. It's not going to take very much paint, so don't get carried away. I don't want you to fill up your whole petal, because then you'll be making a pink daisy. And I just want the centers, just around the very center where we're going to put our centers in there, to be pink. Okay, so I'm going to do a few more of these on camera. And then I'll go off camera and I will finish them all up. And then we'll move on. I don't want this video to be 5 hours long. So, alright, I'm going to show you one more, this big one here. You have to pick up paint quite frequently with a smaller brush. Okay, oh, I think those are going to be just gorgeous down in there. Got all my pink centers are in. I think those daisies look very pretty so far. We want to add some stems in here before we finish out the centers of our daisies. So I'm going to use some black green. I've kind of already done this one. I tried a different color and I didn't like it, so I'm going to go with the black green here. So you just want to pull some stems in here, wherever you want your daisies to come from. We're doing this before we do the highlighting, because I'm sure I will get the stems somewhere where I want to put the highlight. So I'm just using a one round. Just pull from wherever you think your daisy might be coming out of this bouquet. This one probably come down through here. Little one up here. We're just going to have some of these just kind of disappear back in the fray of things. And then this one's going to come back behind that leaf. We won't see the stems on all of these. So don't try to make a point of making them all completely visible. Like this one, we won't even see the stem because it's behind that leaf there. I'm going to have to define that leaf a little bit better. Okay, I think that's pretty good on our stems. And that was just with black green. Okay, so now we want to highlight on our petals. I'm going to go back to my 6 curve flat here. And I want to do all the outer edges of the petals. And this should stand out pretty well since we based in with light buttermilk. So we're just going to brighten up our petals. Now this one here is underneath that one, so I'm not going to put any on that one, but I'll put on this one so it shows more on top. So we will do them all this way. You don't need to completely fill in the petal, you're just doing the outer edge of it. I'm sure I'm not keeping you on camera very well here. Alright, I'm going to do a couple more on camera, and then I'm going to go do the remainder off camera. So you see how those 3 are already much brighter than the rest? Redo that one. I don't like the way it got shaped. A little bit too much paint there on my brush, so I'm going to remove some of that. And these little bitty ones, we want to put a little bit on them as well, so you can just kind of dot the tips of those. We don't want to leave any flower out. Okay, alright, so I'm going to go finish the rest of these, and then we're going to come back and finish the centers of these. Okay, now we're going to tap some centers in these. Now, there's 2 important things that you need to do. You need to have fresh paint. I'm using a 1 round liner, and I'm just dipping straight into my paint, and then I'm just tapping some deep burgundy right here in the center, but we don't want it to come out and take over our pink shading area that we did. See right here, I got my little dots a little bit too big, and now I'm going to have to come back in and refloat my pink in there. So we're just putting these in the center. Just little dots. We want to do it on mostly the ones that are open. The ones that are just little half flowers we won't need. Anything on this one we will, because it's part way open. And then those are all turned away from us. This one's kind of facing us a little bit. And then this little one here. And this little one here. Put a couple in here because this is kind of open towards us a little bit. And that one's away from us. Okay. Alright, and that was with deep burgundy. Okay, we're going to add a second layer of dots with Snow White, and I've got a little bit of the raspberry mixed in with it. It's probably 2 Snow Whites to about a 2 to 1 on the ratio there. And we'll do even less here than we did with the deep burgundy. We're just creating some highlights on those. We don't want to fill it up completely, so I'm looking for all the ones I put some dots in. Okay, just teeny tiny little dots on there. Alright, I'm going to wash my brush off, and then we're going to repeat that and do even less with just some Snow White. So, just in the brightest spots here. Just a little bit. These dots need to be teeny tiny little pin dots. And I'm keeping them mostly on the left side. Okay, now I want to do some shading here where some of the flowers are over this. I want to shade a little bit back behind that. Okay, let's create a little bit of a shadow here on the picture itself. I'm using graphite. I'm just going to, excuse me, float under this and away from it a little bit. Kind of walk that out. Let's create shadow. I did a little bit underneath this one here, but I'll do a little bit more. That was pretty sloppy. A little bit here. And then there's only a few places. I mean, if you want to omit this step, you can. I just like to give as much detail as possible. So you'll have the option of doing this part or not. Okay, so now I want to create some little shadow areas in the flowers. So maybe right there under that one. And this is another step that you can do or not do. Completely up to you. You'll just go away from some of the petals. Just a few. We don't have to do a whole lot on this. Just in some places where we would probably see a little bit of shadow. Okay, let's make sure I've got all my places that I want to put this. Okay, I think that that looks pretty good. It was just a few. We didn't do a whole lot there, so that's good. I want to add a little bit of our turquoise up in here. So let's put just a very light wash on a few petals. So, and this could also be like if you want to separate a petal, you want to shade a petal to separate them. It's probably not showing up too well on camera yet. I have to go to my smaller curved flat here. Oh, that's not it. Let me get the right brush. Right brush always helps. Okay, let's see. Okay. Let me go back down to this one because I can't really see the color. And this will just give us a little kiss of this color up here. It'll just be in a few places. I didn't put too many petals on top of other petals, so I just want a little kiss. Kiss, kiss, kiss. Okay, looking pretty good. This is that turquoise blue. It's very subtle up in here, so we just want to bring that color up. We can put a little bit of this in our leaves. Just create a little wash of it. Put some on our leaves. Here and there. It's just a touch dark there. Just a little glazing of color. Okay, I think that's looking pretty nice right there. Okay, it needs to be just a touch darker on this side. A little bit more water and move that paint. Okay, that looks better. That brings that turquoise up into that a little bit more. Let me try one thing here. I don't know that I'm going to like it, but maybe a couple of petals could have a little bit more of the blue on them. Okay, yeah, I like that. I like bringing that blue in a little bit more. So you can pick and choose some petals. Probably would keep them more on the shaded side of the piece, the right side. And just wash a little bit of blue, turquoise blue in there. Okay, I think that looks really, really nice. Okay, I've got my first base coat on my leaves here, but before I put my second base coat on, I want to add some vines back in here. So I'm just going to take my one round, and with some black green, if I can get it, there we go. Didn't want to flow off of my brush there for a second. We're just going to put some of our viney stuff back in here. I knew I would be going on top of some of my leaves as I put this in, so I wanted to get it in now. I don't even have any idea what kind of plant this is. It's just some leaves that I painted in here. I think I want to take a little bit of avocado, maybe. I want to make that look a little bit thicker back in there. So I'm just going to kind of tap this in and around back in here. Kind of fill in a little bit. And then we're going to go apply our second base coats to our leaves, which are leaf green. So I'm kind of covering up some of my veining, so I'll have to go back over it. So you might want to do the tapping. I'll put in my instructions to do the tapping of this green in here before you put your second layer on. You could just tap some green in here before you even paint your leaves. Just kind of draw your pattern on and see where you're going to need to put a little bit. Back in here. Picking up a little bit of my greens. A little bit of leaf green. Some of these places that are a little bit more bigger areas I want to try and fill in a little bit. Okay, that kind of helps fill that in a little bit. So now we're going to apply our second coat on our leaves with leaf green. And then we're going to come back. I'm just basing them in with a round brush. And then we'll come back and add detail on these leaves. Okay. I think I've got a style of leaf here I'm going to be happy with. Like I said, this is just a leaf shape I drew in here. It could be any kind of leaf that you want it to be. At the bases of the leaves, I want to do some black green. And I kind of want to pull that out and let it come down the center a little bit. I want to do it on all of them. So I'm just going to kind of pull some of that out. Just take the paint after you put it in the back, and then pull some out this way, then flip your brush over and pull some out this way. Kind of let that go down into the center of the leaf. Now I'm using a larger curve flat, but when I get to some of these smaller leaves, I'm going to switch over to a smaller brush. And then paint a few more of these and let those get dry. There's a big one here. If you can't tell where your leaf shapes are, then put your pattern on here and put some lines back in so you can see where they're separated at. On these smaller ones, I'll probably just keep it more at just the base. I probably should go to a smaller brush. Okay, I'm just going to do those few right there so I can show you how to add the highlight on here. With our highlight, we're going to use olive green. And then you can take a little bit of this olive green and put it up here on a few leaves just to bring some of this color into this one, since we are using this color. But just in a couple of places. I don't want you to you know, completely change the look of those leaves. So now we're just going to shade on the outside. These are kind of almost heart-shaped leaves. I'm going to shade on the outside with olive green. I'll go down one side, give that a chance to dry, and then I'll come back down the other side. A little bit of water on my brush, I think. This one out here. I probably really should go to a smaller brush. flip this around and do the other sides of these. And I might even come back and repeat this. I'm going to let the colors get completely dry and kind of soak down in there. The olive will lighten up and fade down in there, as you can see on this one here, how much it faded. This side here needs to have a little bit more. Keep your shapes nice when you're doing this. Don't let them get away from you. Okay, so that's how we're going to do the highlighting. So I'm going to go finish up the other ones, all these over here, and then the highlighting on these, so we can come back and add a little bit more detail to these. Okay, after we've got all of our first initial shading and highlighting on here, I want to go back with the black green, and then any leaf that looks like it is on top of another one, we want to shade to kind of separate some of our leaves here. Doesn't look like I put too many on top of each other. Okay, I want to put a little bit more of this black green back kind of behind it here. A little bit more depth in this plant. Make sure you go around your leaves and not paint on top of them. Okay, that looks pretty good. Let's take our one round, and I want to thin down some olive green and make it inky consistency by adding water to it, like we did earlier with one of the other colors. And we're going to create, now you can, I think I'm going to change over to a 10-0 liner, because I want some really fine lines on this, and I don't want them to get too big. So you're going to do the same thing. You're going to thin your paint down, inky consistency, and then load your liner up. I like to touch my liner to my paper towel to get any excess paint off of it, and then we're just going to create some veins in here on these leaves. I guess these would be some kind of ivy leaf, I don't know. Stay up on the very tippy toe of this brush, and if you have your paint a nice inky consistency, it is going to just easily flow right off of your brush. You don't want your paint so thin that it will fade down in there and completely disappear, but you do want to be able to have it come off of your brush nicely, and if you've got it too thick, it's not going to do that, especially needing to stay up on the tip like this. So it's very important to have that inky consistency. And if you get a little dark like I just got that one, just touch it back with your finger, and that will take off some of the paint to keep it softer. Alright, just a couple more here. I need to thin down a little bit more. These are just super duper, super fine lines. And if you are not comfortable making fine lines, then practice. Practice on some, some scrap paper or something. Okay, let's add a few little washes of color on here with some turquoise blue. Okay, I'm just gonna create a little wash. So that's going to be quite a bit of water and not very much paint. And just load it on the toe of your brush. And as you apply it, if you feel like it's just fading back down in there and disappearing, then just add a little bit more paint into your water there, your little mix. So we're just going to touch a little bit of this on here. Bring some of this very pretty turquoise blue into the mix here. A little bit more, can't see that. Try and take it off my center vein there. Just want to have a nice little balance of this color in there. Okay, I think that's probably pretty good. Now we want to bring a little bit of that pink, that raspberry, just a touch of it, into our metalware. And we're going to put a little bit of green in there as well. Now we want not very much of this at all, so just pick a couple of places to just add a little bit of that pink in there. You don't want a whole lot. Okay. And let's see, do we want any of this on our leaves here? I don't know how well it's going to show up on that green. We could put just some kisses of this raspberry in here. Just a touchy touch. Don't want to get carried away with this. Let's do one more. We'll do this one. Can't see it over there. Let me try a little touch more. Okay, I think that's nice. A little bit of that pink coming down into there. That's very nice. Okay, let's put some of our green in our metalware. I think this is a tough call here. The leaf green is very bright. I think it's going to be too bright. So let's try some avocado. Black green will be too dark. I want to find that happy medium. So we can put some down here. It can kind of be a reflection of that green coming from there. And let's put a little bit over here. I can put some back in here. Down in here. Just a little bit of green. This is just some washes. Okay, that's looking pretty good. good. I'm liking that. Okay, with our graphite, we also shaded a little bit back in here. I went a little bit around these leaves, and then out here on the outer edge I did to create the shadow on the wall and under these two leaves up here. So we just did that with graphite, and we came away from the item, the picture and the leaves and things, away from it to give it a little bit of gap to make it look like it's farther away from the wall than it actually is. Okay, we want to add a little bit more highlight on just a few key leaves here. So I'm going to take my olive green and mix a little bit of Snow White with it, just to create a little bit lighter color. And some of these that are going to be more in the highlight, or in the light, we want to just brighten. And that was just a brush mix, so don't worry about ratio. It's basically just dip into one, dip into the other one. If it doesn't look light enough, add a little bit more white. Okay, I'm going to dip into a little bit more white, and maybe just kiss a little bit more of a highlight on these. Okay, these are the ones that are just catching the light a little bit more than some of the other leaves. Okay, I'm going to wash my brush off and then do that again with just straight white. And you want to make sure that your leaves are dry before you do this. I'm sure mine are not completely dry, because you don't want to remove the highlight that you just put on there. Okay, and then that brings a few of those leaves more towards the front. Okay, let's get our shelf underneath here, and then we'll take a good look at it, and I think it will be pretty much done. So we just want to create a little thinner color of paint here by adding a little bit of water to it. We're going to use graphite, and I am just going to side load a flat brush, and then we're going to go along. A little bit more paint here. Now you can dampen this area first if you need to. We're just creating a shelf for this stuff to set on. Oops. Just removed it. I don't want to remove it. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of walk it down and let it kind of fade away. Alright, I want to put a little bit darker back here. Right there around that piece. I think a little bit more. Kind of bring that shadow down. And kind of make a little triangle there, bring that shadow down just a little bit. And this side's going to have a little bit of a shadow underneath it. Okay, so those shadows will come down in like a triangle. Excuse me. This one might need to be a little bit bigger because this is a much bigger piece. Okay. Alright, so I'm going to take some pictures of this and see if we need anything else to do to it. And I think this is going to be a pretty done piece right here. Let's see. I'm titling this one Vintage Spring because of the metalware in it. And then we've got our nice little spring bouquet of daisies. And then our planter. And in this one, if you wanted to add some little flower buds in there, like some violets or something in there, you could certainly do that. That would be very pretty as well. So I think that I'm going to call this a pretty done project. I might come back and redo underneath here just to give it a little bit more weight to that shelf, but I'm going to let it dry. Okay, other than that, thanks for painting with me. I'll see you on the next one. Okay, I decided I want to put a little bit of lettering on here. So I'm going to base this in with graphite. I'm just using a 1 round brush. And this has some little fine detail stuff on it, so you can get a liner out if you don't feel comfortable doing the little swirly detail stuff. Can't see my lines here very well. So this has a little swirl that comes around it and then curves like that. These are pretty thin letters, so you don't have to push real hard on your brush. I like this graphite because the word I'm writing on here is vintage, and I think the graphite already looks kind of like a vintage color. Just up on the tip on these finer areas. Lettering is very easy. It teaches you very good brush control. You want to always pull the letters towards you and not away from you. When you go up, especially at an angle, but going up or at an angle away from you, you lose control of your brush. You don't have near as much control. So you want to always try to have good brush control. So try to always make your strokes in a downward motion. One more letter here. So I've titled this piece Vintage Spring. So that is what I am going to put on here. Okay, so there's vintage, and you can go over it a second time if you like. Now, and I probably will. It's not quite. I might do it a little irregular the second coat to make it look a little worn. The word spring, I kind of wanted to do the turquoise, but it is way too bright, so we're going to tone that down. Mix a little charcoal in with it, because it's pretty bright. I'm not sure I'm going to like this for the word spring. You want to give pressure on your brush in the fatter areas. Yeah, we can't even see that color. So let's see. Let's go with a different color. Let's go with avocado here. I'll have to paint over that S. I need to glue my brush. It's coming apart. Okay, so okay, the green's better, but I'm definitely going to have to go over it twice. I could even go with black green. Black green would look really nice. I've started with this green, so I'm going to go ahead and finish with this green. And I think on my second coat I may do black green. See if I can see my G there. I can't hardly see it. This S here. Okay, I'm going to get those coats dry, and then I'm going to put a second kind of irregular second coat on it. I'm going to use black green on here, and I'm going to go ahead and use the graphite again on this one, and then we'll see if I want to do a drop shadow on it. Okay, on our lettering I want to do one last thing here. Because we have black underneath our blue and it shows through, I don't know why mine on the camera is looking brown instead of black, but because we have that black that's showing through, we can use black in our project. Although I haven't used it anywhere, I used the graphite because I wanted a more subtle dark color, but we can use it up here on our lettering. And so I think I'm just going to put a little bit at the bottom of these letters here. I need to thin it a little bit. You got to have your paint a little bit thin so it will flow off your brush nicely. So just at the base of the letters. I'm just going to darken them up a little bit. Okay, and on the word spring, I want to do the opposite. I want to do it on the tops, and I'm going to try avocado dip and see, make sure it's not too bright. I'm just kind of dragging some of that on there. Okay, I think we could use a little bit of lightening maybe on the top of our vintage, so I'm going to take a little bit of white, mix a tiny little bit. I'm going to take black and mix a tiny little bit of white in there. I want a really dark gray. Oops. That's not showing up, so I'm going to add a little bit more white in there. And I'm just kind of dragging this down. going to give it a little bit more of an aged, worn look. Okay, I think I like that. Maybe put a little bit of black green on the bottom of the green letters. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. Let me think about that word vintage. I think it might need just a touch more of a highlight. So let's add a little bit more white to it. Okay, that looks good. That looks good. So we're going to base it in with charcoal. We're going to drag up black from the bottom, and then we're going to make medium value gray, because gray sky is going to be too light probably. Then down here we can base them in with avocado, drag black green up from the top, and avocado dip down from the bottom. And that finishes our flowers. And the only other thing I'm going to do, and I'm going to go off camera and do this because you saw me do all these, I'm just going to add a daisy laying down here by the bottom of the picture, and maybe just drag a little bit of black since that's in our background. I might put a little bit of black, streak it through here, not a whole lot. Okay, so I think we can call this piece pretty done after I get that daisy. I've just got my centers to do on it, and I'm undecided if I want to put a leaf on it yet or not. I might put a leaf on it. I have not decided. I'm trying to remember what colors I mixed here. Bit of black green. Ooh, that was a big old chunk of black green. And a little bit of avocado just on this one. I know we didn't put it up there, but I want this stem to stand out a little bit more. Bit of a shadow on that one. Get my graphite, put my shadow here. This one might need a dual shadow. Okay. I think that looks pretty good. Let me wide angle out so we can see the whole thing. Yeah, definitely needed those letters on there, so that's a good call there. I might add another flower down here, but that will be in the pattern. It will all be done the same way. So I think I will definitely call this a finished project now. Thank you so much for painting with me.